Welcome back, listeners. This is episode 102 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is March 1st, 2023. One announcement for my premium students. Make sure you are watching the bulletin videos. I do those every other week. I am now putting BOLOs in these, items that I'm just learning about. Sometimes I figure something out or learn something new, and I just can't wait to tell you guys so that you can be making more money too. So these are like little hidden Easter eggs sprinkled into the bulletins. Sometimes there will be additional lessons or courses about these items, but it may take a while for me to make them. And sometimes there is no future lesson, just a mention, so you can look for these items right away. There's just an overwhelming amount of information out there about what is selling on eBay. And I am doing the work to keep you updated. So consider me your personal researcher. And if you're not a member yet, you can check out the free trial. The link is below. You have access to everything. You can download as much as you want and keep it forever. And of course, you have access to my personal help desk service, where my guarantee is to answer you within 24 hours, but usually it's much less. And the library now has 575 videos with over 150 hours of education. And there is something for everyone. So take advantage of that free trial and you can see what is waiting for you and all the knowledge that's going to help you make more money. Okay, and now for our illustrious book expert, Eileen.
Hello, listeners. We have a repeat guest with us because her previous podcast in 2022 was one of the most listened to so far. So we've got Eileen with us, aka the book lady. And how are you doing this morning, Eileen?
I am doing great. Thank you.
And tell us again where you're located.
I live in Annapolis, Maryland, about a mile from the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay. Ooh, yummy seafood. Yeah. Okay, good. And let's just recap a little bit in case people aren't familiar with you, in case they didn't hear that previous podcast. Tell us your story of how you started selling on eBay.
I came to eBay through Etsy. I'm a collector of 1950s vintage tablecloths, the really colorful ones.
Yes.
And in 2017, I decided, okay, this is getting ridiculous. I need to thin out this collection. So I started selling on Etsy, and I also started selling on Etsy all the little vintage goodies I'd picked up on impulse buys here and there because I love vintage. And so I did, and I still am on Etsy. But then in early 2019, I was recovering from gallbladder surgery and fell down the YouTube rabbit hole of selling on eBay videos and realized there was a whole lot more possibilities on eBay than there was on Etsy because of the breadth of things you could sell.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, it's a much bigger marketplace. So I started selling on eBay in 2019. And so now we're at the 4-year mark, and here I am.
Okay. And you're just rocking along because a couple of your high dollar sales have been the cover thumbnail for some videos. I think last month I had your book on the front.
The $600 book. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So let's just tell that story now.
Okay. Well, I go to used book sales regularly. And there was a book that I had never seen before, but it was in a slipcase. And it was in this particular book sale has a section for signed books, which can add value, but most of the time it doesn't, but sometimes it does. But it was in a slipcase and it was in the signed section. So I thought, okay, slipcase and signed, those are two good indicators that you may have good value there.
Okay. Can you explain a slipcase is not a dust jacket?
Correct. A slipcase is a box. And if there's more than one book in it, you call it a box set. But if there's only one book in it, you call it a slipcase. It's just a cardboard surround and you slide it in just like a little open-sided box.
The whole series together in this three-sided box.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was signed. It was in a slipcase, and I opened it up and I found that it was a numbered limited edition. And I think there'd only been 500 or 2,000. I forget how many they were printed. I think it was only 500. And that is like the trifecta. So I quick looked it up, and there was a crappy signal there, of course. So I didn't get real good data, and I just didn't see a whole lot, but I saw some similar things. So I thought, well, for $3, I'm taking that home. And then later discovered that, it was a really valuable. I used Terapeak and WorthPoint to figure that out. One of those had not been available in the past couple of years, so nothing had sold for that in the past couple of years. And then WorthPoint had some ranging from like $200 to $700. And I thought, well, I'm going to just put $599 on mine and see what happens. I was fully prepared to have to put best offer on it or send out off, but I just hung in there for a little while, and it sold, I don't know, pretty quickly within a week or two for full asking price. So that was my highest sale ever. And that was January of this year, January 2023.
And the amount was?
$599.
Oh, wow. So did that money get earmarked for something special, or did it just go into the family pot?
It goes into the family pot. So my husband retired last year. So now there's lots of things happening that weren't happening before. So he likes to travel, and sometimes I travel with him. So it's travel money. It's just whatever. But
okay. I was like, oh, wow. How did she know to do that?
It was the slipcase signed and limited edition numbered. Yep.
So it had all the things that make it valuable.
The trifecta. Yep.
Yes. The perfect cocktail.
That's right. But any one of those things, even if it only has one of those elements, you should always look that up.
Yeah, I do look for box sets because those are easy to see on the shelf.
Yes.
But we were talking before we started recording, and I'm like a lot of people, books just overwhelm me. Like I don't know what to pick, and there's this giant shelf, and you just kind of have to look at all of them until you learn. But my problem is I come across books that I want to read. And it's just like, oh, I heard that's really good. Or that came out 10 years ago and I never read it. And now at my station in life, I have time to read for pleasure. It's not just all like studying and research. And I think it's good for your brain to escape the seriousness of life and just read a good book. So
I was just reading somewhere that fiction is better for your brain than nonfiction.
Well, and I'm making a switch because the last 2 or 3 years I've been reading and listening to audiobooks that are nonfiction. And it's, I was writing a nonfiction book in that time frame. So I was like, wanted to read some others with the same subject matter. And it can be very depressing and draining and, tragic to read all these stories with, it's just very heavy. And I decided last week, I'm like, I'm not going to do that for a while. I'm going to read fiction and, get recommendations on Goodreads and from other people that are readers. And just like, I like to escape for a little while and just let my brain relax and get involved in a good story. Like I love books that you just can't put down. Like, you read it in 2 days because it's so good. If you have any recommendations, listeners, let me know. During my empty nester, single person chapter of life where I have time to read. But I end up looking for books for me in the thrift store and just forget that I can sell them.
Well, I will say when I come home with a carload of books, 2 or 3 that go into my to be read pile, and they're still there, but I keep thinking I'll get to them.
But it's good to have options. I like
it really
a stack of books. Like, what do I want to read next? You know? So that's me in the thrift store looking for stuff for myself. But one reason I wanted to have you on again was because some things have changed in your life and your business over the last year. And So let's talk about what some of those life changes were and how it affected your reselling.
Okay. We became empty nesters in fourth quarter of 21, so a little over a year ago.
Insert applause.
Let me tell you, my son, the pickup truck with his stuff had barely left the driveway when I had my measuring tape out, measuring his old bedroom. I was like, my space, I claim it. And let me tell you, that has been a game changer. I'm all now in one area of the house, whereas before I had a teeny little office upstairs. It was so tiny, I could have barely operate in it. And inventory was scattered here and there. So now I'm on the lower level, and I've got a huge room for listed and unlisted inventory. And then I've got a nice big office. I'm looking around me now. It's, 12 by 15-ish. I don't know, but it's got natural daylight, which is amazing. It has doors out onto the driveway where I park my car, so I can bring my hauls in and out, which is perfect.
Oh, and with books, they're so heavy.
Oh, tell me. Yeah.
I sold books on Amazon for a few years, and I just got overwhelmed because it was such a heavy business, because you fill up your bag or whatever at the estate sale, at the book sale, you got to schlep them to the car, and you schlep them in the house. And then when they sell, you got to carry them back out. So you got to consider that if you don't want to work with heavy products, because books can be pretty heavy.
Yeah. And I might be getting over that heavy stuff soon. Who knows? But yeah, so the office setup is so much easier. I have a dedicated shipping station, a dedicated photography area. And I have a couple different photography areas. Like I have a wall where I can hang things. I have a open floor space for flat lay. I've got a table. I've got a light box, and I don't have to put things up and take them down again. Mm-hmm. In my old office upstairs, I was using the same few square feet for shipping and photography. And that was just, oh my gosh, it took forever. Mm-hmm. So I feel like my processes are so much more streamlined now, which is great. It's just so much better.
Yeah, that is definitely a game changer when you can make your time more efficient.
Yes. I'm not losing things. Everything has a place. It's been a game changer. So it makes it that much more enjoyable.
So your son can't come back because you're set up in his room.
I have 4 kids and none of them are allowed to come back. Sorry, we have no space.
Like, we'd rather give you money to help you out than have you come back.
Yep. My husband took a couple of the upstairs bedrooms for his man cave in his office when the older kids moved out, and I grabbed the downstairs when our last one moved out. And so we have our own sections of the house now. It's great.
I love that.
Yes.
Good for you. And you deserve it.
Well, people keep saying, well, you should downsize now that the kids are gone. I'm like, no, we want this space. We're having fun with all this space.
Yeah, so, we're going to enjoy it. Good for you.
Right. Yeah.
So you've got a new office and a new setup. And then you said that you changed how you source.
Yeah. I don't think I have been, the only time I've been to a thrift store this year is when I've been on vacation in a different town. Mm-hmm. But I no longer do thrift stores in my area because they are basically crap. And it was getting more and more frustrating to find anything. And so I do a lot of book sales. That's kind of the backbone of my sourcing. And I always find book sales that I'm not familiar with online on a website called booksalefinder.com. So that'll tell you in every state, every date where the book sales are. So there's some good ones that are held annually or even twice a year around me within like an hour's drive. And then there's my favorite charity book sale, which is held roughly 8 times a year, and that's 10 minutes away.
Wow. So that's almost like every other month.
It is. Now I'm a little nervous. I'm hearing rumors that they're going to lose their lease at the end of the year and they have nowhere to go. And I'm like, no, don't take it away. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that, because that is like my total bread and butter.
Well, I feel like the book angels will work that out.
There are so many books. I keep telling myself that you're not going to run out of books. Not going to happen. So yeah.
I feel like they'll find a spot, or somebody will connect with them that knows of something. Like, I'm sure you're not the only one that loves that sale.
Right. And estate sales have been really big for me this year. In previous years, they weren't so great for me. And then in 2022, they were just great. I don't know if it was the luck of the draw or whatever. And then one of the companies, the estate sale companies, learned that I sell books. So I'm now on their private picker list. If they have books they can't move, or they have a different arrangement with a client where they don't want to have a public sale. Twice last year, they called me and said, hey, you want to do a private pick? And I'm like, yeah. So
that was my next question, is how you got into that. Did you ask?
I think I struck up a conversation with them and just told them that I'm basically a book buyer. But when I've gone to the picks, one was it was all books and media, which was great. The other one was, it was the home of a university professor in Annapolis who had an amazing collection of books and media, but also all kinds of beautiful vintage stuff. And I got there and he said, well, don't limit yourself just to books, just make a pile of whatever you want. And I wasn't the only picker there, but it wasn't, there were like 2 or 3 other people there, but it was phenomenal. And he had to have that sale privately first because it was in a section of old historic Annapolis where the parking is terrible. And he had made arrangements with a church nearby to have parking on the day of the estate sale, but he still was really concerned about the traffic issues. So he wanted to clear out as much as he could ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm sure he'll call me again. It's just, I don't know how often, but those 2 private picks were, they're the best. They're the most fun. So
that is something I keep seeing. I think Carlos talked about private picks, and I know George Kelly does it because they all know him and he'll buy stuff. And I think once these people, they see you as a cash cow, they see you as a meal ticket.
They need to move stuff.
So let's get her in here.
Yep.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we wanted to talk about other things you're doing differently compared to a couple of years ago. And you did a business analysis. Let's hear about that.
Well, I've always considered this my hobby business, and the minute it stops being fun, I will stop doing it. But, I got the new office set up, and then I thought, okay, I need to look at everything. And I've always been really intimidated by data and data analytics, but I found some YouTube channels that explained the eBay data analytics better. And I just really started looking at everything. So I started looking at my sourcing. Where am I getting the best deals? What's the best ROI? I made a spreadsheet of estate sale companies, and what my spend would be and what my ROI would be. And then having seen that, I just dropped some right off my list. They're not even worth my time. I looked at, and that's why I also dropped thrift stores, because that was, I wasn't getting a decent ROI there. And then someone, I don't know who it is, has used the term, pay attention to the health of your store. So
I do. I say that all the time.
Oh, do you really? Okay, so that would be
the health of your store is it's not just the one refund or the the one INAD. It's how you do business all together.
Yes.
To keep your store healthy and happy so that you don't go below standard or get suspended or
Yes. And it's not. And what I found was, before I was always focused on got a list, and everything else falls by the wayside. And I just kind of approached that differently last year. And it was like, no, let me look at the listings that I have up. Am I making the most of them?
Right.
And so I really started focusing on that. I started realizing, and I was very anti-promoted listings for a while. I was thinking, why should we pay extra? That's ridiculous. We shouldn't have to pay those fees. And then I started looking at the data and started tinkering with it. And now I promote my listings, and it has made a huge difference in traffic. Mm-hmm. I just looking into data analytics, I realized that there's a filter that a buyer can look at for what's on sale. I don't know why I wasn't paying attention to this before. So if my books aren't running on a different type of sale, like with 10% to 50% discounts, I run all my books at 5% off all the time otherwise. Okay. And that the filters will catch that more. And I noticed a big spike in sales doing that.
That is a good point, that buyers are filtering that.
Yes. Yes.
So you do a sale and promoted listings.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I started calendaring and scheduling my sale, thinking, okay, the first week of the month or the first week of this month, it'll be all craft supplies and holiday. The second week of the month, it'll be all whatever, so that things go on sale regularly. And I have some good deals in there. And then started being a whole lot more willing to let go of stale listings and willing to really slash prices just to get some out. I don't know, for so long I felt like I have to bring in the biggest dollar, and that thing brought in $150 2 years ago. I should get that. Well, not really. Yep. I started getting a lot more realistic. And again, that has helped the health of my store. So just doing all those things and paying attention to that. And I've always shipped within 1 day, even though I have 1 to 3 day handling.
Mhm.
My feedback, I don't want to say I've never had a negative feedback. I think I had 1 2 years ago. I don't want another bad one just for saying it, but my feedback is always great. But I am meticulous about my listings. I'm not fast. I'm not a fast lister, but I know as a book lover and a book buyer and a vintage buyer, people want a really well thought out specific description, and they want to know what the flaws are. And with a 80-year-old book, there are some specific terms and some specific photos that you really have to put in that description for a buyer to feel secure in buying it.
Mhm.
And so I take my time with that.
Okay.
So yeah,
Good.
so those are all the things I'm doing. Yeah.
Well, I like what you said about leveraging what you've already done,
Yes.
because there's sort of a divide in sellers that some never go back and look at their listings. They just leave it alone and eventually it sells. And then others, I'm in that group that I do go through maybe 10 listings a day, end and restart, see if there's any new keywords I've learned I can add to it. If I've had it a long time, reevaluate the price, make sure, everything is in order because you've already done the work.
Right.
You've
Oh, and I do.
already invested time in finding the item, photographing it, and listing it. So
Yes.
let's fine tune it so it'll sell.
I end and sell similar every 30 days, every listing. Again, you
Okay.
get a little bump there too.
So you don't end them all at the same time. You just do some every day.
No, I'll usually do a half of my store every 2 weeks.
Okay. That's good.
Just because it's easier. It's easier to
You
do it
go
all
through
at once.
every listing.
Well, I do it. I bulk end and sell similar.
Okay.
So
But
I don't tinker with it. I don't change the price. I just end it and sell similar.
Okay.
And then sometimes I will tinker with a listing or a price or a title or something. But for the most part, it's just the straight bulk edit, end and sell similar.
Okay. And do you get many returns on books?
Well, your listeners.
That was a loaded question. Sorry.
Good question. People on the Facebook group may recall that I sold Charlie and the Chocolate Factory first edition in January for $695.
Yes.
And it was returned. Which, oh my God, did that sing. And it was my fault. I had done a lot of research on this book. I thought I was being really careful. And there was one tiny little detail that keeps it from being a $695 book. And I missed it. The buyer was absolutely right to send it back on a item not as described. Totally. I take full responsibility, but boy, I was so mad. So I have not gone back to look at the value again, just because I want the sting to subside a little bit before I look at it again. I do think it'll be a good sale. I think it'll be probably $100 or more book, but it won't be a $700 book.
And what was the mistake you made in the listing?
Okay, there was a term that was new to me, and it's called a colophon. And it's usually in the back of the book, but sometimes it's in the front matter. And it's several lines of where the book was printed, how it was typeset. And there's a couple other pieces of information in that colophon. And the original, the one that was the highest value, had a 6-line colophon, six lines of information. It was the second to last page of the book. Mine had 5 lines. It didn't have the 6th line. And I don't know how I missed it, because thought I was being really careful, but I missed it. So all other indications are that it is a first edition, but it's not that one, so I have to figure out the terminology I'm going to use to describe it, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, but it was a great learning experience. I won't make that mistake again with a colophon ever.
Well, it's such a tiny detail.
It is. But that's the thing with book buyers and collectors. They really want those details. So, sometimes for a book, if it has a dust jacket, the difference between a $500 book and a $700 book can be if there's a crease in the dust jacket. I mean, collectors are, they're very particular, and they will tell you what the value of that book is based on all those tiny little details. So it's worth it to me to learn those and know those. I do know that some other booksellers, might let a book go for considerably less than I would, because they don't want to fuss with picturing those details. But, I enjoy it. And I'm, part of my enjoyment of the business is keeping books alive and making them special for the buyers that want them. So, yep. So that was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Other than that, do you get many returns?
Very few. I got a book return a few years ago for a book club edition of the first Harry Potter book. And the reason for the return was doesn't seem authentic, which I don't know what they meant by that, but whatever. I took it back. It was only like a $25 book. I got a Stephen King book returned once really early on because I had missed some damage under the dust jacket. Again, a fair return. Again, I've never made that mistake again. Mm-hmm. And then I've gotten returns on a couple of articles of clothing for not fitting, because I do sell clothing now and then. So pieces came back for that, but very, very few returns overall.
And that's what I like. That's the kind of product I like to find, is things that don't get returned.
Yes. Yes.
Because nobody likes that. And as a buyer, I don't want to have to return something.
Right.
I want to find what I like and keep it. So
I sold a Fontanini Holy Family set in early December, a nativity set, just Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. And they opened a return on January 2nd. I'm thinking they used it and put it under their tree, and it came back
yeah.
Sort of like the prom dress thing,
What was the reason for the return? Didn't like.
Bought by mistake.
Yeah.
But I mean, they paid shipping both ways, and I thought, okay.
I know. I don't understand. I've got a return coming back for a leather planner. Never had that happen before, and the reason was, it's not what I thought it was. And I'm like, I have 8 pictures of it, the measurements, the number of rings, and I did everything. So I don't know. It was a $15 sale. And he paid shipping both ways of $8. So I'm like, you spent more money on the shipping than you're getting back for the item. Like, why not just sell it yourself or give it to somebody, or like, why are you throwing money
don't realize I think some don't realize they're going to have to pay the shipping back.
Yeah.
I really think that's the case.
That's probably true, because, Amazon and so many others have free return shipping, but they just don't read the fine print. But I don't care. I'll sell it again. It's fine. It's just nobody likes that message. Customer has opened a return,
Right.
So, okay. Now I'm looking through your bullet points here, which you were so kind to send. You said, one very small change with a big impact is cleaning up my office at the end of every day. I love that.
I know it sounds like so lame.
No, but you're just like wrapping everything up and getting organized and ready for the next day. So you don't walk into a mess like, your kitchen when there's dishes everywhere. Nobody wants to do that.
And, I'm the kind of person that I just want to do the thing. I don't want to set up for the thing. I don't want to, set up my equipment, everything. I just want to do the thing. And then I want to stop and go away. And I don't want to clean up after the thing.
Yeah.
So, but that's not life. So, so that, it sounds like a silly thing, but I've always kind of been messy. I've been a messy person my whole life, but it made a big difference to my workflow again during the day. Everything's back where it needs to be. The floor is swept, all the supplies are where they're supposed to be. And
yeah, I'm kind of like that. I was always a lay my clothes out the night before school kind of person. Like, so I could sleep 5 minutes later.
Right.
Like everything's ready. I just have to get up and go.
Right.
But I like that, you're wrapping up the day, everything's in its home, and then the next morning you can just get your coffee and get started.
Yes,
Good for
exactly.
you. Now let's talk about, one thing I want to ask is how many book listings do you have? Do you know?
I have about 450 listings in my store, and I think about half of those, maybe a little bit more, are book listings.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah,
So that's a good foundation.
it is. And when I also, there's other media there too. There's some DVDs, some CDs. So, but yeah, but mostly books.
Okay, good. Now let's talk about shipping, because you mentioned you go back and forth and sometimes use pirate ship.
Yeah, I pretty much have almost completely moved over to pirate ship.
Okay.
Partly because I just got a little fed up with eBay and not paying for breakables when you have something you send that's broken and you can't, the insurance is no good, or it's such a hassle for the buyer. But I knew that people had reported that if you insure through pirate ship, you don't run into that hassle. So
Okay.
I went over there for that reason, but also because I sell on Etsy. And the thing with eBay, unless I'm doing it wrong, the thing with eBay is you have to print all your labels out at one time at the end of the day and do your scan sheet for the post office all at one time. You have to batch print if you're going to use a scan sheet at the post office. With pirate ship, you can just do the orders as they come in. And I also put my Etsy orders there so that at the end of the day, I can print out a scan sheet for all those labels from different platforms. And so that's much easier for me because I don't like to batch print labels. I'm terrified of mixing up an order.
Yeah, I never do that. I do my one by one.
Yep, I do it one by one as they come in. And so then the other thing is there over there, I linked it to a credit card with a rebate. So I'm getting even a little more rebate on it. And what I'm finding is very interesting on pirate ship. And I haven't checked on eBay, but I've noticed that a lot of times on pirate ship, priority is cheaper or within pennies of media mail. If it's all going to be on the East Coast. And I don't know why that is, but my buyers are delighted when they get something in 2 days instead of 10. So I always check.
Yeah, media mail is the stepchild of the post office. I mean, things disappear or it can take weeks.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just not worth that little bit of a discount you get for the peace of mind and the stress. If people pick media mail, like on my books that I sell, my BOLO books, I always upgrade them because I know they want that information in their hands quickly, so they can start looking for things, and they may not know that media mail is so slow. A lot of times it's buyer ignorance. They just don't know. They just pick the cheapest one.
Right.
And I've had things go missing for weeks.
Yeah.
And just never surface again.
Yes.
And then you can't put insurance on media mail, can you?
You can add insurance to media mail. Yes, you can. So I'll look at the price breakdown with that. Is it, let's say it's going to the West Coast, So media mail will be the cheapest. And I'll add insurance on top of that. I mean, because the spread on between media mail and priority for £3 across the country is going to be too great.
Right.
But if it's going one postal zone over or whatever, like to the central time zone, it's often cheaper to just upgrade to priority. And then you've got that $100 worth of insurance coverage. And if the book was $125, I'm willing to gamble on losing $25, but, and it makes more sense to go priority. So, I'm always looking at those factors as well, trying to, weigh what's going to be the best customer service and what's going to, be the most affordable for me.
Right. Okay. Good analysis there. I'm reading through your notes again, and you said 50% of your stuff is books. I didn't remember that. Sorry. Well, let's get into some things that the listeners really want to hear is what to look for, what sells. And that's something that you've started doing, is selling books in, I guess, a lot of color schemed for home decor. I want to hear about that.
I call those my pretty books.
Yes, yes.
The charity book sale that I go to every other month has a really good vintage section. If I can beat the other dealers to that section, which I don't always do, I pull them based on looks. I basically try to put together a lot of color scheme books. Green and gold tend to sell the best. Red and gold also do well. And then green with some brown books mixed in, or red with some brown books mixed in, also do well. I look for ornate spines with gold lettering and sometimes graphics. I look for ideally a book that's 100 years old or older. I don't always quite get there, but a lot of times I do. I look for the height of the spines so that you can create this like pleasing outline. So you've got your highest book in the center, and then the books kind of taper off down sides in size. A lot will be between 6 and 8 books. I don't usually pay more than $3 a book, sometimes 4. And it takes a few months to put together a lot like that. And I just basically throw all my pretty books in a bin, and I take them out and play with them now and then. And when something looks pretty, I put it up online. And they usually sell within a couple of months. And I usually list them between 125 and 159, knowing that I will come down. I just listed a lot a couple months ago for $159. It was 8 books, all antique, green and gold. And I put it on sale, and it sold for $127 plus shipping. The red and gold sometimes won't quite break $100. It just, but yeah, they're really pretty, and they're fun to play with. So that's really that's really for my pleasure. It's not really.
That is a great alternative to, just knowing what books to sell. You can, if you're new to this,
right,
and you're an artistic person, you can just look for those kinds of books. A lot of times books are $1 or less.
Right.
So it's not an expensive investment, but it's the home decor aesthetic of the books themselves, like you said, making the artistically balanced shape, yes, the tall thing in the middle. I just thought that was such a great idea. Now, did you come up with that, or did you see that
I think I saw it somewhere. Okay. I may have seen it on eBay. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And the thing about that is a lot of those books are not in good shape when you open them. The spine is cracked, or there's some torn pages or whatever, but that it doesn't matter because they're not reader copies. They're decor copies.
Right. I was just going to say the inside doesn't matter. The pages could be stained or torn or whatever. And as long as the outside is pretty. Do you ever include any of those Reader's Digest books?
No. I know some sell those lots. They're extremely heavy. To make money on that, you need to get those books at like 25 cents each. And I suspect they are not fast movers. So I don't even bother with those.
Yeah, I never had any success with those when I first started, because my mom had a bunch and we tried to sell them, and it's like nobody really wanted them.
No, nobody wants those.
I mean, this is for the home decor aspect of just being pretty. How do you title those listings?
Antique, vintage, decor lot, green, gold, poetry, literature. So I'll try to, basically people also want something that's going to make them look really smart. So if it's classic literature or poetry and it's on their shelf, that just makes them feel, like they're, they have refined tastes. And so I put those keywords in the title as well, because if they're decorating something, that's what they want.
That goes under the heading of people only let you see what they want you to see.
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to put all these books that are, Tolstoy and all this hard stuff. James Tishner, I could never read his books. They were like, those books were 800 pages long.
I could get a couple chapters in and then I was done.
Yeah. And it was like, I'd fall asleep. So I need something that's interesting. So they're just putting those books up there to increase their self-worth.
Yes.
People don't know I didn't read these.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but I love that idea, and I'm going to start doing that and looking for those. I like your idea of just pick them up when you see them,
Yep.
put them in the bin over to the side, and then reevaluate maybe once a month what you've got.
Virgin River, I've sold that at least twice, the full set, and I currently have another set up, and I'm probably going to need to drop the price on that because it's not moving. So, but yeah, pay attention to when things first come out, that you're going to get your highest price then.
Well, a lot of people don't realize these series are based on books.
Right. Right.
And like, if I had known, shoot, I wouldn't have watched it. I would have read the books first. The books are always better. But yeah, a lot of people or they're just not readers, or they don't have time.
Right.
And so they just jump into this, was it Mindhunter that was on Netflix about the FBI profilers? I didn't know that was from books.
Yeah.
And I think the guy's name is John Douglas. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going back and reading those books now because the series on Netflix was so good. And Twilight. Now, you know that Stephanie Meyer wrote another book in 2020.
I did not know that.
It's called Midnight Sun. And it's all do you know the Twilight saga?
I'm very familiar with it. Yep.
Well, I did not.
There's tons of them on the shelf. Every used book sale I go to, there's a bazillion on the shelf.
Right. Okay. So I had never read the books or seen the movies. And then I heard about this. And a couple weeks ago, I went to the library and checked out those movies and watched them. So now I know the story and the people. But anyway, I have read that they are making a movie of that, but it's about the beginning. It's all about Edward's past and his perspective. So some people say it's terrible. It's just a retelling of the original Twilight and then some people love it. They haven't seen these characters in years because she didn't write any books for about 10 years. And, but they are making a movie. So I don't know how it's going to be successful if it doesn't have the original actors in it, because we all know and love them. But I understand that, like, the Twilight series of books, if it's, sealed or in the slipcase or whatever, those can be pretty valuable if you have them all together.
Yeah, I've looked at comps on those, and I've never found a set that's worth much because they're so mass produced that
right.
Yeah, it's hard to find the really rare sets. Now, I did hear that Anne Rice, they're making a movie, might be Netflix, I'm not sure, about one of the Anne Rice novels. And I forget which one it is, but the price apparently shot up on eBay on that particular book. So I need to go back and see if I can find out what book that is and keep an eye out for it.
Okay.
So I would say if you want to sell books, get tuned into what's on all the streaming platforms and what they're making movies out of, because what they're making movies of that were books, because that's a good clue that it could be worth a lot.
Well, and something interesting we were talking about, we like to just roam around the library and look at stuff. And so I was in there a couple weeks ago and found this book called Taken at Birth about a clinic in North Georgia in the 40s to the 60s where they were selling babies out the back door. And I was like, oh, this is Georgia, where I'm from, and I've never heard of this, and it's very interesting. Well, I get halfway into it and I go on Hulu one night, and there's a show about it, Taken at Birth. I think there's 4 episodes. And so of course I had to watch it before I finished the book. The book is, it's a different perspective. It's one of the women that was a baby that was sold, and she's trying to find her roots and her family and all that stuff. But yeah, there's so many movies and series that are from books, and I wish we could Google good books that were made into movies that I haven't read.
I bet you could Google that.
That I haven't read, because once, like The Help, I read that book, and then the movie came out, and it was pretty good. But yeah, I like to get my hands on the book first, but
yeah,
it's time to read it.
There's a couple of paperback series I've sold several times that have not been made into movies. Well, actually, there was a movie years ago called Master and Commander with Russell Crowe in it.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a series of, I think, 20 books based on that character by the author's Patrick O'Brien. And I found the series at a low enough cost once, like I think I paid like $1.50, maybe $2 a book. And it was 20 books in the series. And I was able to sell it for a little over 100. So if I see those cheaply enough and it's almost a complete set, I'll go ahead and buy it and then try and fill in the set. And the other one is, back in the 60s and 70s, there was an author called John D. MacDonald. And it was about a private eye named Travis McGee. And some of your older listeners will probably recognize that name and that author. And there's I think again, it's 21 books in that series. And if you can find the paperbacks in the series complete cheaply enough, you can flip that for about $110. So I've sold that one a couple of times. Mm-hmm. But more and more, I'm actually not waiting to build a series. When I first started out going to the book sale that I go to every other month, I knew that I had a steady supply of certain book series, like especially the kids series, Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Harry Potter and, a bunch of other ones. So I might only pick up 2 or 3 volumes at a time, but over a period of a few months, I'd have them all and I could flip them. And I did that because I was new at books. I knew they sold. That was a price point that I knew I wouldn't lose money on. But as time goes on, I don't have the patience for that anymore. I have enough of a death pile. I'm tired of storing books for over a year and then finally getting them online, and the price has fallen a little bit. So now if it's a series, I'm looking at it, I really won't buy it unless it's almost complete or unless it's really high value. Otherwise, I'm not looking for these onesies, twosies anymore to build a lot with. So that's,
I always wondered how you did that, because that would be so frustrating just to have all these stragglers, all these little stepchildren everywhere that don't match up with anything. And it might take you years to find all of the books to make the set complete.
Yeah, in the past few months, I've given up on some of them and I've just blown them out really cheap as incomplete sets just to get them off my shelf. Like everybody's business, you're going to evolve and change the way you do things over time. So right. That's another change that I've made. I'm looking for, and I'm in a streak where I'm not what I hope it lasts, where I'm able to find those, single higher value books. I couldn't 2 years ago, I couldn't find that. Now I'm finding them just because I'm more tuned in. But a lot of the book sales that I go to, they have a special dealer sale before the public sale, but you pay to get into them.
Right.
So the one I go to every other month is $50. And I would go, yeah, right. So I would go and I would, fill, 6 to 8 big boxes full of books and buy them, to build sets. And I'd be spending, in the $300 and some range. And I would see people checking out with one small box with a dozen books. And they'd walk and they paid for those books, whatever the book price was, usually $3 or less, plus the $50. So that every single book in that box was earning its keep. And I thought, I need to learn how to do that. And I think it's just a matter of time and experience and developing the gut, because more and more I'm able to do that. I wouldn't say that's the bulk of my business now, but I'm trending in the right direction. And that's something I'm happy about.
Yeah. Cherry picking.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. It's like, I could buy all that, but I'm going to have to list it. And,
yep.
I always
think it's heavy.
And I would always think about, if this is in my pile, is it going to be the first thing or the last thing I want to list? And if it's the last thing, then I don't get it, because it's not going to do me any good to have it if I don't want to list it. And as far as books, I think I have like PTSD about book sales, because I started selling books on Amazon in like 2009. And I was kind of like one of the early adopters of the whole FBA and all of that. And I would go to book sales and it was brutal.
It can be.
People would go in teams and they all had the book scanners.
Yep.
So there would be, a guy looking at the books and then a couple of guys standing over by the door, and they would literally throw the books across the room to their teammate, who would put it in a box to buy. And it was like, I was outnumbered, and there's all these, aggressive people that are just I just didn't like that environment for
Right.
things to sell. It's just, I'd rather go into a used bookstore where there's nobody there and
Yes.
just kind of look around and not have all this aggressive behavior, because I can't think, I can't make good decisions when that's going on. I just didn't want to do that. So I don't know if it's still that bad. I guess it just depends on the sale.
It depends on the sale. The one I go to regularly, the dealers are nice. We all wait to get in. We stand in line till they open the doors. Everybody gets to talking. People aren't pushing and shoving, and everybody's very pleasant. But the last time I was there, I was, I was on one side of a bookshelf and someone was on the opposite bookshelf, and they were scanning books with a scanner. And I would hear ka-ching, and I think, oh, and I pull my phone out of my pocket to see what I sold, and there was nothing there. And a second later, ka-ching.
Oh,
ka-ching.
somebody else's.
It was their app. It was their app telling them if the book was worth buying and reselling.
Oh, that's annoying.
It was exciting when I thought it was my book. But yeah, so
right.
some people are using those, and I think they're doing a high volume business. A lot of the dealers I talk to sell on Amazon, not on eBay. But I'm hearing from other dealers that Amazon is now like telling you your book is priced too high. You're not allowed to sell it for that much. And I'm thinking, not in my world. That wouldn't happen. I mean, no way am I. And so I never hear good things about Amazon and book selling.
Well, and back in that time, and probably now still, there would be people who would buy literally tractor trailers full of books.
Yes.
Just from, bookstores shutting down or wherever they were getting them, wholesalers. And, literally those books cost them less than a penny a piece. So
right.
when you go on eBay and you're like, how can somebody sell this book for $5 with
right.
free shipping? It's because, they paid a third of a penny for it. And anything is profit. And when you're selling 100, 500 books a day, whatever it is, that's their model is volume.
And you got your system set up that you can process that many books.
Right. You have employees and warehouse and all that stuff. So,
and I've noticed for some of those really big booksellers, their descriptions are all the same. So like if they're listing the book as good, it's a cut and paste description of good. It may have markings in it. It may have crease covers. It may have this. It may have that. Doesn't tell me anything about that individual book. It just tells me what it might have.
Some of the Goodwill online, because I do buy used books on eBay. I don't care what condition they're in. I'm just going to redonate it when I'm done. But because sometimes I can't get it done in the time the library allows.
Right.
And I don't like that pressure. What if I can't renew it? I can't finish this. Yep. Some of the bigger booksellers like Goodwill Online and Thrift Books, all of their books are graded as acceptable.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It's just easier for them to list them that way. They don't have to grade them. They just undergrade them, even if they're like new, because a lot of things I've ordered from those are like new, but it's just to make their listing faster. Everything is as acceptable.
One thing that I do when I'm listing books is I decide what it is. Is it like new? Is it very good? Is it good? And then I grade it down 1 in my description because I'd rather under promise and over deliver.
Right.
So that because that's subjective. Good can be very subjective. So if I think it's good, I'm going to call it acceptable. And then I know the buyer's more likely to be happy.
Exactly. Yeah. And do that on everything.
Yeah. Right.
Really. Okay. So one question, and this is for the people who want to get into selling books, but feel overwhelmed. So when you're standing in front of the books at wherever, thrift store, used bookstore, whatever, just visually, other than the home decor books with the pretty spines and the sets in the slipcase, what other kind of things can we look for, just kind of cherry pick without having to look at every single book?
Okay. I would look at if it's not in the slipcase, but it's but it's by the same author. Look at series and then look up the series and see if that's worth much, depending on the price. Look at vintage books, and by vintage, it might be 1920s, but it also might be 1980s. Like books that your kids might have had or you might have had as a child, like. I've sold strawberry shortcake books. I've sold Lion King books from the 90s. Oh, you know what a good one is the Great Brain series. I forget the author of it, but it was like a Caldecott or Dell Book Award thing when I was a kid, published in the 70s. That set has 6 or 7 books in it, and you will get close to $100 for that set. So look at the books from your childhood or your kids' childhoods, because that might be worth something. Look at antique books that don't cost a lot. If you see, for instance, an Alice in Wonderland book that looks old, look that one up. I have sold 3 or 4 different antique Alice in Wonderland books, all different versions, that I could find no comps on because apparently they produced so many different versions of it, and they've all done great. And I've had no luck with coffee table books.
Okay.
I never seem to find any that are worth anything. I did find one. It was the Gnomes book from, I think it was the 1970s, like when we had that whole Scandinavian craze. And I think I sold it for $36, and I shipped it off media mail, and the buyer never got it. And I tracked it down, and it went to some lost mail hub. And I thought, well, we'll never see that again. So,
Right.
yeah. But I just haven't done much with coffee table books. I don't know if I'm not looking for the right ones or not finding them, but
Now,
no
what
luck
about
there.
cookbooks?
Cookbooks can be great. But cookbooks are like 99.9% of them are worth nothing.
Yep. Southern Living, nobody wants those. 'cause
Nobody
we
wants
all
those.
have
They
them.
really don't. Yes, that's something I don't have a lot of experience with. I've picked some up that looked okay with them. Some of the older Betty Crockers. I've sold some early edition Julia Child, but never a first edition.
It's very specific. Like if it's a cookbook about something very specific, like a health issue or like 101 blueberry recipes or
Right.
something the more specific it is and the fewer of them that were printed, the better luck you're going to have. But like
ethnic cookbooks.
Okay, perfect.
I sold Scandinavian recipes. I think I paid 50 cents at an estate sale, and that went for like $35. Swedish recipes, it was a similar thing. I sold this really beat up, it was spiral bound, ripped cover, stained, spattered. It was African-American recipes from the 1960s, and that one went for $50.
Nice.
So look at the ones that are ethnic specific. And especially like in America, there might be like the Slovenian Society or something. I think that's another one I've sold. They're going to have their little group of people that, want to enjoy their cultural heritage and put out those kinds of cookbooks, and those can be in demand.
Well, and I've seen more and more of the like combinations of several specifics, like gluten-free Mexican cooking.
Right.
It's like a health issue and an ethnic thing. So I do look at the cookbooks, and I've never hit on a big one, but you're right. Most of them are worth nothing.
Yep.
Oh, and another thing is my friend just sold one, St. Simon's Island cookbook. If it's a location specific,
right,
or a church cookbook, or like Junior League or something, there was only so many printed. And I think those are purchased for the nostalgia. Like
those are really hit or miss for me, I have found.
Yeah.
Because I often see those and I look them up, and none of them are worth much of anything, but there might be some, in fact, that are. So always look. Yeah.
I can just see somebody buying an old Junior League cookbook from the 60s and giving it to their mom for Christmas, like, oh, recipes in there, mom, stuff like that. But it is hit or miss. So I guess the more unique something is, the better chance you're going to have for a higher price. One
of the book sales I used to go to would just give away their cookbooks for free. They had them all in one section. They say all the cookbooks are free, just take them, because there's just not always much value there.
Well, and some church thrift stores do that with Bibles. They're free.
Right.
And so that's another issue. What about Bibles? What should we look for? Because I see them all the time, but I don't know, like, is this one special or what's the deal?
Yeah. Here's what I look for in Bibles. Leather covers, real leather, or bonded leather. those thumb shaped dividers that divide all the books of the
Right.
Bible.
And where it's notched out.
Right.
Okay.
Pegged to maybe a religious celebrity kind of like trying to think of some that I might have sold, maybe Chuck Swindoll, put out by a particular organization. They're always worth looking at. If they're really specific or different, I'm trying to think. Nothing comes to mind, but I know I've sold some. Oh, I sold one with a water buffalo cover on it.
Oh.
I sold that for $80 some, just a water buffalo hide cover. There's one I've sold a couple of times, and I have a third one up, and it hasn't moved yet. It's called The Smallest Bible, and it's a tiny little thing. I don't know, maybe the size of a postcard, and it's got a snap closure. And I've sold that one twice for about $95. And I keep getting low offers on the one I've got up there, but I'm not going to take less than 80 on that. But I see that one repeatedly sell for, $90 and above.
Oh, nice.
And it's very unassuming looking. You normally wouldn't pick something like that up. So
the snap closure would be your visual cue on that.
it would be, and small, very small. But it will say on it, I think on the title page, I think the smallest Bible or something like that. That's what it's actually called.
Okay. Have you ever found money in Bibles? Because people used to hide their money in there.
No, I've never found money in Bibles, but I have found notes in books. So those are always kind of fun. They're birthday wishes, birthday cards, sweet little notes. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we are getting to the end here. And instead of asking you your favorite part, because I think we went over that, some advice for new sellers, people wanting to get more into books that are a little intimidated or overwhelmed, like I am, and or distracted.
Yeah.
What's some advice?
I would look at the solds. I would pick a genre and look at the solds and see what is selling.
Mm-hmm.
And you could search on whatever you want, book sets or complete series or manga or, graphic novels. Just start playing with that and seeing what is selling. Get tuned into what's on streaming that has been made from books. And then don't be afraid to really look outside the box. I was at a book sale. It was in some guy's front yard. I don't know if he was a collector or reseller or what, but had all these old books, and I really just didn't see much of anything I wanted. But I came across these government notebooks, and I knew what they looked like. They're like green cloth bound because my husband used to have them when he worked for the government. And I opened it up, and it was all these handwritten notes, and it was computer language. And it turns out that they were from the estate of a woman engineer at the Goddard Space Center, NASA in Maryland. She had done some of the earliest work on the Hubble Space Telescope. And these were her handwritten computer logs for the software programming. And there were five notebooks. And I think the guy had just gotten them at a estate with a bunch of books. And I forget what he asked for them. And I got them for $15. And I ended up selling them for $260.
Oh, gosh.
I thought there is some geek out there that really is going to want that. It's such a different item. It is so unique. So I would say wherever books are sold, look at the things that are really outliers, that just look really different. The other thing that a niche that I did well with last year is mid-century Catholic books. Yeah, wild stuff, but pre-Vatican II, because there is a sort of subgroup of Catholics that don't like Vatican II, that want to go back to the older ways, and there's theology books in that genre. And if you find those books, you can do really well with them. I've sold several of those for between like $50 and $100, $150.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the really weird niche stuff.
Okay.
If you were looking in the solds, you might look up, vintage theology book or something, just see what you come up with and see what's been selling. Again, look for the outliers, look for things you've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. And I need to ask this because the listeners are going to want to know, encyclopedias.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I mean, I would rather shove a hot poker in my eye than try to package that to ship.
I have a set that I bought at an estate sale 3 years ago, and it's a beautiful set, but it's the Macropedia and the Micropedia. So I think it's over 30 volumes, leather bound, and I still haven't listed them. I don't want to deal with them, but I do know that there are people that really do well with those. They do great with them. So if that's something that you're willing to lift.
Well, and I gathered from research that like the doomsday preppers, they like the encyclopedias.
Yes.
If you're going to be underground during the apocalypse, you need some stuff to read.
In fact, anything in that niche, any book in that niche is great. Prepping, trapping, living off the land. Look for the Foxfire series. I've sold that. I've sold parched. I've never had a full set, but I've sold those volumes.
I've sold some of those too.
Yeah, anything that looks like homesteading.
Yeah, and all the doing everything yourself, how to make soap, how to make fish traps, how to anything off the grid with just yourself. Like you
because there's always a headline that makes people nervous, that they think, okay, the world's going to end. We need to be ready for it. And so, that's your market right there.
Good. Well, we could go on and on. We didn't even talk about magazines. Maybe we'll do that next time. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. And what is your plan for this afternoon?
My plan for the afternoon is we're recording this on Valentine's Day. So I'm going to make my husband's favorite dinner, which is shepherd's pie. And then I need to get some listings done. Okay.
Well, happy Valentine's Day. I hope you get lots of candy and flowers and all those beautiful things. I'm going to have a Galentine's Day.
That sounds like a good plan.
That's kind of a thing now, doing Galentine's.
Why not?
Hey, why not? Okay, well, thanks again. And we will look for some more of your amazing sales on the Facebook group.
Thanks, Suzanne. My pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you again, Eileen, for coming on. I always learn so much from you. So we will have to make this an annual thing, getting you back on the podcast every year to help us stay up to date. And I really appreciate all of my guests sharing their knowledge because it just helps everybody. Okay, today's trivia question. What was Stephen King's first published novel? Here are a few seconds to think about it. Okay, the answer is Carrie. Although it wasn't technically the first book he wrote, it was the first one picked up and published by Doubleday in 1974. And for a bit of more trivia, Stephen King wrote a few books under the pen name Richard Bachman. At the beginning of his career, the general view among publishers was that an author was limited to one book per year, since publishing more would be unacceptable to the public. King wanted to write under another name in order to increase his publication without saturating the market for the King brand. He convinced his publisher, Signet Books, to print these novels under a pseudonym. In his introduction to the Bachman books, King states that adopting the pen name Bachman was also an attempt to make sense out of his career and try to answer the question of whether his success was due to talent or luck. He says he deliberately released the Bachman novels with as little marketing presence as possible and did his best to load the dice against Bachman. King concludes that he has yet to find an answer to the talent versus luck question, as he felt he was outed as Bachman too early to know. The Bachman book Thinner, which came out in 1984, sold 28,000 copies during its initial run, and then 10 times as many when it was revealed that Bachman was, in fact, Stephen King. So I thought a book/literature/ publishing trivia question was appropriate since we've just spent the last hour talking about books. So, students, pull out your 2022 BOLO book and you will see on page 18 where Richard Bachman books are explained. Some books under the Richard Bachman name sell for over $1,000 on eBay. Yes, you can check Terapeak to verify. So this is why you want to stay in the know studying my BOLO books. Maybe you didn't know this. Maybe you have walked past these books on numerous occasions because you just didn't know. Knowledge is definitely power when you are reselling. Okay, next week my guest is Linda, who is a newer seller doing an outstanding job. Regardless of how long a person has been selling, they always have something valuable to contribute because we all have life experiences and have taken different paths to get where we are now. Even people who don't sell on eBay have valuable knowledge. Okay, that wraps up this episode. Thank you again for tuning in every week. I will talk to you next week. Have a great day on eBay. Bye.